In 2025's super-scaled historical Korean comedy drama, Lady Wari suddenly discovers at a banquet that her fiancé, Jang-won, intends to betray her. Furious, she gathers her close friends and rushes to witness the scene for herself. At the same time, in a private room of Chin-yun house, Jang-won, suffering from pre-wedding anxiety, is preparing to test his manhood with Lady In-young. Unexpectedly, Wari's elder brother arrives first, and the two are caught red-handed by Wari and her companions at the door. Humiliated and furious, Wari turns away, and the scandal soon shakes the entire capital. The very next day, the king decrees that Wari and Jang-won's marriage be expedited, ordering the betrothal gifts to be sent immediately and the wedding to be held within 3 days. Yet Wari refuses to come out to receive the gifts. Knowing she is still angry, Jang-won comes personally to apologize and admit his fault. But what angers Wari is not his behavior at Chin-yun house, but the fact that Jang-won allowed the world to hear of his proposal before she herself was ever asked. He never personally sought her hand, nor considered her will. Jang-won, however, believes their bond is already unshakable, especially with the king's approval. Wari retreats into her chambers, deeply wounded in her pride. Unexpectedly, Jang-won kneels before her without regard for his status, begging for another chance. By midnight, Wari makes a bold decision. She leads him to a secluded house and says bluntly, "Let's not delay." She pulls his hand to her chest, and though Jang-won understands, his excitement causes Wari to knock her head on the floor. Concerned, Jang-won removes his robe to cushion her and stays by her side. The next day, Jang-won brings Wari to meet the crown prince. Almost unconsciously he reaches for her hand, but Wari, embarrassed, pulls away and runs. When she scolds him for embarrassing her, he quickly apologizes, confessing that he only feared she would regret their night together, and so he wished the whole world to know she belonged to him. Wari blushes crimson, pulls him close, and whispers to him, but Jang-won soon follows her into the carriage, where the two share a private, intimate moment. On the 4th day, their wedding is held. Yet Jang-won, in his first marriage, drinks too much from the endless praise of Wari's father and brother. Entering the bridal chamber with a silly grin, he barely manages to undress before collapsing into a drunken sleep. Later, when the couple enters the palace, the king personally asks Wari to support his modest son. But Jang-won embarrasses her yet again. Every time Wari chats with the princesses, he sends servants every 2 minutes to ask if she has finished. By the 3rd time, Wari storms out angrily, only for Jang-won to present her favorite pastries, proudly declaring he saved them for her. Her anger melts instantly, and the two walk away together, leaving the crowd, who had expected scandal, sour with jealousy. The very next day, the king announced the acceleration of Jang-won and Lady Wari's marriage and also began seeking a husband for Lady In-young. But upon hearing this, Lady In-young declared she already had someone in her heart, Seo-jun, her maternal cousin. The king's expression darkened instantly, for such a match was unacceptable, bound by strict family law. Fearing further scandal, the king ordered Lady In-young to be properly confined this time, while the queen wrote to Seo-jun's household. Seo-jun, however, sent word back, saying he was already promised to another and urged Lady In-young not to pursue the matter. Lady In-young refused to believe it. That very night, she slipped out of the palace and rushed to her uncle's house, where Seo-jun embraced her at once. But when she asked if he truly had a fiancé, Seo-jun admitted that while the engagement was false, his imminent marriage was real. Believing it was only her royal status that stood in their way, Wari declared she was willing to abandon everything to be with him. But Seo-jun, coldly pragmatic, told her to return to the palace. To him, love meant nothing in the face of reality. Devastated, Lady In-young still clung to hope, promising to wait for him at the docks so they could sail away together. But the queen soon discovered her disappearance and secretly sent the crown prince to bring her back. At the dock, before Seo-jun ever arrived, Lady In-young was spotted by Choi Hwan. Though they had only met briefly before, he was intrigued by her unusual boldness. When he saw the crown prince approaching, he pulled Lady In-young aside to hide her, silencing her with a hairpin as "hush money" before attempting to slip away. But at that moment, the crown prince appeared and told Wari bluntly not to wait any longer. Her final shred of hope shattered. What she once believed was mutual love now turned out to be nothing but a cruel joke. Soon, gossip spread through the noble circles. Lady In-young had been rejected, her affections one-sided, and her dignity trampled. Yet Lady In-young herself, unfazed by the whispers, remained as unbothered and untamed as ever. On the day of Seo Jun's wedding, Lady In-young found herself in turmoil. One moment she was crying over her heartbreak, the next she was laughing bitterly at herself as gossip about her failed romance spread among the nobles in the form of mocking romance stories. Determined not to appear the victim, she stormed out of the palace and joined the crowd of onlookers. At a clothing shop, she demanded every garment the owner had, declaring she would dress as the most beautiful woman in the land. Her plan was simple: confront Seo Jun at his wedding and break things off on her own terms, even if only to say that she was the one to leave him. The shopkeeper, intimidated by her imposing presence, thought she meant to cause a scene at the wedding. But Lady In-young's bravado lasted mere moments before she ended up at her aunt's house, where, under her aunt's guidance, she made a shocking decision. Returning to the palace, she confessed her true thoughts to the king and queen. She wanted to choose her own marriage. The king, steeped in traditional views, refused outright. The queen, however, understanding her daughter's willful nature, gently reminded the king of his own youthful defiance. In secret, she arranged a tea gathering where Lady In-young could meet several potential suitors chosen as candidates for her future husband. Yet things did not go as planned. The noblewomen who received invitations complained privately about Lady In-young's eccentricities and instead praised the more proper Princess Hwa-chae, daughter of Minister Kim. Though they dared not openly refuse, they conspired to avoid the tea gathering by attending a charity market that Minister Kim had organized for famine relief. As a result, the tea party was a disaster, leaving Lady In-young without a single suitor in attendance. Frustrated, she left with her mother, only to unexpectedly run into Choi Hwan, the very man she had once encountered in secret. Mistaking him for someone trying to blackmail her for that night's incident, she dragged him away and demanded to know his price to keep quiet. When he introduced himself properly as Choi Hwan, Lady In-young was stunned. He was the infamous first rake of the capital, said to own 99 mansions, each filled with beauties, and even wealthier than the king himself. Still skeptical, she scoffed at his flashy appearance and asked what he truly wanted. Choi Hwan merely smiled and explained he was among the invited candidates for her hand in marriage. Since no one else had shown up, Lady In-young bluntly declared that the entire selection was cancelled. But Choi Hwan, unwilling to waste the effort he had put into his appearance, was far from ready to let her dismiss him so easily. To him, it was heaven's will that she had no other suitors, leaving him as her sole choice. Lady In-young thought he was mocking her, but Choi Hwan spoke sincerely. None of this was her fault. It was only that others failed to see her true worth. To prove his sincerity, he led her to the charity market opened in the queen's name and donated a great sum of grain. With only a few words, he dismantled Minister Kim's petty schemes and won the king's admiration. Believing this man to be the one Lady In-young had chosen, the king nearly confirmed his position as royal consort, but Wari quickly objected, insisting that Choi Hwan's generosity was merely an act of goodwill for the people. Respecting her will, the king relented. That night, however, everything changed. Under the cover of darkness, Lady In-young sought out Choi Hwan. Looking him straight in the eye, she confessed that she was not seeking a political consort. She was seeking a true partner, a man she could call her own. Though she knew a princess could never decide her marriage, she dared to dream. She asked him, if she were not a princess, would he still choose her? Choi Hwan admitted bluntly that her royal status was indeed part of her appeal, but also her unique character, her defiance, and her boldness. Lady In-young found his words clumsy, even vulgar, but his honesty struck her deeply. For once, she felt seen not just as a princess but as herself. One thing led to another, and before the night was over, Lady In-young gave herself to him. At dawn, she returned to the palace, disguising her tracks and locking away the memory as if it were a dream. Choi Hwan, waking to find only a note in her place, laughed aloud. Though she tried to leave it behind, he vowed to take responsibility. But when he confronted her, Lady In-young effused him, yet she also thanked him, saying that he had given her the courage to dream again. Moved, Choi Hwan begged for a chance to win her heart properly. From that moment, he began his pursuit in earnest, staging chance encounters and offering small, thoughtful gifts, like a handmade parasol with a hidden love letter. Lady In-young pretended to brush them off, but the smile tugging at her lips betrayed her feelings. Just as her heart began to soften, tragedy struck the palace. Princess Wajin, Lady In-young's pregnant cousin, went into labor. But her husband, the arrogant royal consort, had disgraced her by taking liberties with her maid. Overwhelmed, the princess suffered complications. When the queen's physicians rushed to help, the consort's mother barred them at the gates, citing propriety between men and women. With no help, Princess Wajin bled to death, her child lost as well. Yet when the ministers demanded punishment, the consort lied, claiming he had merely kept his distance out of propriety, that he had already summoned the best midwives. Denying all fault, he escaped blame through lack of evidence. Grief consumed the court. On the way to pay respects at her cousin's funeral, Lady In-young stumbled upon an even more devastating sight. Her uncle, in the morning hall itself, entangled with a maid. Rage and despair filled her heart as she realized the rot within her family ran deeper than she could have ever imagined. Because of the consort's selfishness, 2 lives had been lost, and Lady In-young's grief was unbearable. She wanted to demand justice in court, but as a woman, she had no standing. All she could do was beg her father, the king, to punish the guilty. Yet the investigation had already concluded. With no solid evidence beyond rumors and In-young's own testimony, the king could not act. More than that, the consort was the descendant of a revered general, a lineage too important to disgrace. To In-young, this was unthinkable. Her father was both the sovereign and Wajin's elder brother. Shouldn't he have protected her? But the king remained silent. If he executed his own son-in-law, the scandal would destroy the royal family's honor. The silence broke In-young's last hope. Unbeknownst to her, Choi Hwan had already foreseen this outcome and prepared a plan. That night, he secretly delivered a bundle of letters to In-young, correspondence between the king and the late Princess Wajin. Reading them, In-young learned that her father had long known of her cousin's suffering, but instead of recalling her, he had urged her to endure. Regret haunted him, but it was too late. The truth shattered In-young, and Choi Hwan, listening quietly outside, felt her pain like his own. The next day, his scheme unfolded. Choi Hwan spread a thinly veiled tale across the capital, a novel inspired by Wajin's tragedy. The villainous consort and his cruel mother became the laughingstock of the streets. That night, the consort, desperate to salvage his pride, slunk into a pleasure house to boast before his friends. Spotting a young courtesan new to the hall, he immediately demanded her first night. But the brothel's master was none other than Choi Hwan. Calmly, he refused, then lured the consort into a wager. If he won, he could have the girl. If he lost, he would forfeit his estate. Arrogant and drunk, the consort agreed, confident in his skill. Choi Hwan let him win twice, then raised the stakes, best of 5. If the consort lost, not only his house but all his property would change hands. Blinded by greed, he agreed and even demanded witnesses to record the terms. Of course, he lost. When he tried to renege, Choi Hwan's men reminded him that here, no one cared if he was a royal consort or a beggar. The next morning, Choi Hwan brought In-young to witness the sight of the disgraced consort and his mother being driven from their home. In-young could hardly believe it. What her father could not do, Choi Hwan had achieved. To ease her pain, he then led her up a mountain, where the fresh wind swept across their faces. Standing beside her, he vowed that she would be the only woman in his life. He would surrender his entire fortune, even sign away his freedom, if it meant being with her. He even declared that if she loved another man, he would accept it. But In-young grew angry. To her, love was not a bargain to be sealed with contracts and wagers. She did not want a marriage built on transactions or bravado. With sharp words, she stormed away. Yet her anger did not erase the warmth growing in her heart. Later, when she saw her brother Jang Won and his bride Wari smiling sweetly together, In-young could not resist confessing her secret affair with Choi Hwan to her cousin Wajin. Wajin was shocked at her boldness but delighted, dragging her back to her room to gossip in private. Yet soon enough, Wajin herself committed a reckless act. Infatuated with a man, she decided to throw him a love letter on his way home from the academy. Unfortunately, it landed right at his feet. Embarrassed, the man protested that he already had a lover. Luckily, her note was unsigned, giving Wajin another chance to scheme her way closer to him. It was Wajin's outspoken nature that first exposed the young man's engagement, embarrassing him in public. The truth was, after learning she would be forced to marry someone she didn't love, Wajin had confided her sorrow to her cousin, Lady In-young, admitting that her heart already belonged to another. In-young not only knew who he was, but encouraged her cousin. If she didn't want regrets, she should confess her feelings. At first, Wajin hesitated, but when In-young later revealed her own secret, that she had already shared an intimate bond with Choi Hwan, Wajin's eyes were opened, and she resolved to take her chance. Thus began the events that followed. To help, In-young devised a plan, arranging an accidental meeting and pulling Jang Won into a shop under the pretense of helping Wajin choose her wedding attire. In truth, she wanted to test his reactions, to see if he might harbor feelings for her cousin. Yet Jang Won, innocent in matters of love, only gave blunt answers, leaving both Wajin and In-young disheartened. It was Choi Hwan who stepped in, teaching Jang Won the art of subtle praise, reminding him that women sought admiration of their taste, not mere commentary on clothes. Later, as In-young teased Jang Won about his preferences in women, Wajin misunderstood and grew hopeful, convinced his words referred to her. But before anything could be clarified, a sudden accident struck. A shelf collapsed, and while Choi Hwan instinctively braced the weight, Jang Won shielded In-young with his own body. From that moment, In-young realized that both men had quietly been watching over her, though in very different ways. Back at the palace, Wajin boldly asked Jang Won if he cared for her. In-young, more cautious, guessed that while he may not yet love her cousin, there was some measure of regard. Otherwise, why would he help her pick wedding garments, or protect her from harm? She urged Wajin to seek her elder's blessing before pressing further. But Wajin's impatience overcame her. She confronted Jang Won directly, declaring that she would break her mother's betrothal arrangement if only he would accept her. His puzzled expression crushed her hope. His kindness had been courtesy, not affection. Heartbroken, Wajin chose to bear the pain alone, though her brother Wang overheard. Later, when accused of impropriety, he revealed her secret meetings with Jang Won. In-young was devastated that her advice had led her cousin into deeper despair, though Wajin insisted she had at least been true to her heart. Soon after, their father summoned Wajin, urging her to accept her fate. Marrying a man who did not love her would bring no happiness, so she should prepare herself with dignity. Meanwhile, Jang Won, burdened by his own emotions, shocked his family by declaring his wish to become In-young's consort. His father refused outright, for a royal consort could not hold public office, and he would not see his son abandon such a promising career. But Jang Won's resolve was firm. He confessed directly to In-young, only to receive what felt like rejection. She told him she had never seen him as a man. Even so, Jang Won begged her to reconsider, asking only for a chance to prove himself. In-young gave no answer. On their way home, fate intervened again. They came across a woman on the verge of taking her own life. Saving her, they discovered that she was burdened with grievances too heavy to bear. When In-young revealed her noble status, she urged the woman to speak openly of her suffering, promising to hear her plea. The woman then revealed that the crown prince had assaulted her after mistaking her laughter with a friend as mockery, and afterward he shamelessly boasted of it as a heroic conquest. Unable to bear the shame, she had sought death. In-young was horrified that her own brother could commit such a crime. Choi Hwan, seeing her distress, urged her to step aside while he comforted the victim. He reminded the woman that her life still held value and that dying would only let the guilty go unpunished. Inspired, pamphlets based on Wayang's misdeeds soon spread through the capital, secretly organized by Choi Hwan himself, who wished to seek justice knowing the king would protect his son. But when Jang Won found one of these pamphlets, he gave it to his father, the prime minister, believing it would help. Instead, this act backfired. The king, enraged, ordered the arrest of the publishers for slandering the royal family, making the innocent booksellers scapegoats. In-young, learning the truth from her mother, grew furious at her father's willful blindness. Eventually, Choi Hwan stepped forward and took responsibility for publishing, though he denied treason. As a merchant, he argued, printing books was not a crime, unless the stories about the prince were true. Still, the king refused to believe him, and only Choi Hwan's quick use of the king's past promises saved him temporarily. But matters worsened when Choi Hwan discovered the author's true identity, the crown prince's wife herself. To protect her mentor from punishment, In Young revealed herself to Choi Hwan and begged for his help. Before long, Choi Hwan, loyal to In Young's wishes, challenged the corrupt officials and forced the king to acknowledge the truth. Just as the king prepared to interrogate the accused, news arrived that another book had spread, this time exposing the crown prince's betrayal of his own kin. The crown prince's wife recalls her story with the crown prince, beginning with their first meeting at the age of 12 on a cold winter's day. Though their marriage was arranged for political alliance, to them it felt like destiny, love at first sight, and their first experience of true affection. Yet on their wedding night at 15, her happiness ended. Palace rules were suffocating. Emotions were forbidden. Affection had to be hidden. Even their time together was observed and recorded. The weight of this duty was crushing for her young heart. Years passed, but she bore no child. Each time she failed, the crown prince's wife endured the harsh scoldings of Lady Kim, who had sent her into the palace, and was given endless remedies to force conception. She cried alone in secret, unable to release her grief. What pained her most was that, unlike the prince who could leave the palace whenever he wished, she had no freedom. Eventually, she discovered he rarely returned to her side, and when he did, his warmth was gone. Soon after, Lady Kim even brought another woman into the palace, claiming it was to ease Princess's burdens. But she quickly realized this woman's true purpose. One night, refusing the crown prince for the first time, she pushed him toward the other woman instead. He stormed out in anger, and she later learned he had gone to visit a courtesan named Se-ran. From then on, he spent more nights away, returning only out of duty. When rumors of his affair reached Lady Kim, she lashed out at the princess, blaming her for the prince's wandering heart. That was when the crown prince's wife made a choice. She would no longer endure in silence. She confided in Young, who wished to help, and together they sought to transform her pain into a story. A novel was secretly published, mirroring her life, and through it, she found a strange sense of vindication. Yet when the crown prince read the story, he grew agitated and left the palace again, chasing after Se-ran. At that moment, the princess's heart truly died. After a sleepless night, she resolved to end the marriage. With the help of her learned friend, she prepared 3 reasons: her failure to bear an heir, her supposed lack of virtue, and her indiscretion in letting her sorrows become public. Though In Young tried to console her, insisting none of this was her fault, the princess knew the cruel truth: many palace women were punished unjustly under similar charges. When word reached her that Se-ran had left the capital and the prince was weeping over a farewell letter, the princess felt nothing but emptiness. Her tears were gone, her heart unbound. She had chosen a new life, one free of the shackles of her title, her loveless marriage, and her silent suffering. Despite her despair, the princess gathered her courage and confided her true wish: to end her marriage to the crown prince. With Princess In Young's support, she went before the king. Calmly but firmly, she admitted her failings, her inability to bear an heir, her so-called lack of virtue, and the scandal her sorrow had caused, and begged for release. The king, however, rebuked her harshly. Royal marriages, he declared, could never be dissolved. Though she had expected rejection, the sting of his words cut her deeply. That night, overcome with grief, she threw herself into the icy waters of the palace lake. But fate spared her, and she was pulled back to life, only to face the scorn of her family, who valued the title of crown princess more than her happiness or even her survival. At her lowest moment, In Young and her loyal friend Ji-won rekindled her hope. Ji-won drafted a petition on her behalf, though the king dismissed it. Undeterred, the two rallied noblewomen across the court, gathering signatures to support her freedom. To the crown princess's surprise, even Lady Kim, who had once tormented her, eventually revealed her own tragic past and lent her voice. One by one, powerful women, including the queen herself, joined the cause. Still, the king remained unmoved. It was only when the crown prince himself, shaken at last, pleaded with his father that the king relented. The crown princess's marriage was formally annulled. On the day she left the palace, surrounded by those who had fought for her, she was overwhelmed with gratitude. To her, it felt like a rebirth. For the first time, she could look ahead to a future that belonged to her alone, no longer bound by duty or silent suffering. The story reminds us that no woman should be forced to trade her happiness for duty. Sometimes the bravest act is choosing yourself. What about you? If you were her position, would you choose to stay or to walk away?